So what are your top 3 issues? If you had to just pick 3, what are the main 3 issues that would be top priority for you should you be elected to the Senate in November?
Medicare for all, expanded single-payer universal health care for every resident of the U.S. It always was on my platform. It wasn't number 1, it was number 2. But in these times, we have seen how critical it is to have good health care for everyone and some national leadership on health care, where there's a policy of caring for everyone, making sure that people get what they need, because it's the public health. It's not individuals pitted against individuals or saying, oh, you're in poverty, you don't have a job, you're unemployed, so therefore you don't deserve health care. That is ridiculous, and it's a disaster when it comes to a public health crisis. A Green New Deal, a demilitarized Green New Deal. Our biggest employer in Maine is General Dynamics Bath Iron Works Shipyard. They build warships for the Navy. I've been part of a campaign for many years before becoming a candidate to call on that facility to convert to building something we need. And, the Pentagon is the biggest polluter on the planet. It consumes more greenhouse gas than 140 nations, or consumes more fossil fuels than 140 nations if it was listed as a nation. So anytime you're building weapon systems, that's harming the climate. Militarism really drives climate change. And if you stop doing that, that's a win for the climate. And then if you instead build something that addresses energy needs, public transportation, that is also a win for the climate. And it needs to be a just transition. I don't want to throw anybody out of work. I want everybody who wants one to have a good union job with benefits. One of the things we're always told by our congressional reps is, we can't stop the Navy contracts at Bath Iron Works because jobs. Well, really, building weapon systems is a bad jobs program in terms of how many jobs it generates. Economist research demonstrates time and again that if you invested the same, say, $1 billion in almost any other sector of the economy, including clean energy production, you would produce at least 50% more jobs, sometimes more than that. So a demilitarized Green New Deal that also includes local energy production, consumer-owned utilities where the power is generated locally and used locally. You're losing tons of electric energy by transmitting it thousands of miles over these big lines in order to sell that at a profit. But that's not at all an efficient use of that energy. And, consumers make better choices about what's in their best interest. They don't think what's in Goldman Sachs' best interest. They think what's in mine and my neighbor's best interest. And then third, I think that the student debt crisis is really bad everywhere, but it's particularly bad in Maine. Maine students hold an average higher student debt than most states, and it's not a great jobs market. I think that public education has been underfunded my entire lifetime, and especially public higher education. If you go to the state universities or the community college, you shouldn't be coming out of those with any debt at all. Certainly not with 5 figures of debt that you're going to drag through the next 2-3 decades of your life. Maybe never finish paying off your student debt. Who wrote those laws that even if you declare bankruptcy, you can't get out from under that debt?
I wish I knew.
Representatives are not writing those laws.
So you mentioned more municipal ownership. Are you familiar with municipal broadband, like city-owned internet?
I'm familiar with the concept. I'm sorry we don't have it in Maine, but boy, do we need broadband as a utility. Probably it would be at the state level here, because there really are only 2 or maybe 3 municipalities that are big enough to do it on their own. But it's a great idea. When the pandemic hit and school was, in-person school was canceled, of course, most school districts went to distance learning. My school district that's here, up in the foothills of the White Mountains here, so many families didn't have access to the internet. So my school district actually purchased hotspots for the middle school and high school students who didn't have internet access. And they decided to just go with paper packets for the K-5 students. I would guess they may expand that in the future if they need to, but it's very iffy to get. There are certain towns in Maine that don't have any internet access at all by any method.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one, when you're amidst a pandemic, you kind of look for what little silver linings there might be. And one of them is like, well, hopefully, the earth kind of heals itself a little bit and we realize what we need to do about the climate. And then another one is we're realizing that the internet is a utility in our lives and it needs to be designated as such. And I know that, there's a lot of municipal broadband projects happening in Massachusetts because Charlemont got it and now Cambridge wants it and now Cape Cod wants it and that's spreading there. So yeah, when you said like city owned, like more municipally owned things, I mean, that's one of the things I'm a big proponent for. I'm trying to get municipal broadband in my community where I live. I've gone to like a city hall or a city council meeting and stuff to try to push for it. So it is an issue that is near and dear to my heart.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your news on with Ron.